Story recapped here. Today I'm going to explain an adventure, fantasy, and sci-fi miniseries called Tin Man. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. In a small town in Kansas, a young woman named DG dreams about a beautiful lady with lavender eyes. The lady sings her a song but warns her of an approaching storm. When DG wakes up, she shrugs off the dream and heads to work. She speeds off on her motorcycle, but Officer Gulch gets alerted of her speeding and chases her. Luckily, DG manages to hide from him. She arrives at the diner but is scolded for being late. Immediately, she's tasked to bring food to a customer, who turns out to be Officer Gulch. Smugly, he gives her the ticket that she tried to avoid. After her shift, DG returns home to help her father, Hank. Hank asks her if she had a nightmare again because he heard her tossing and turning the other night. So DG shares about the lady with lavender eyes and that she even drew her. She also tells him that the woman warned her about a storm. Later, DG talks with her mom, Emily, who scolds her about her speeding ticket. Thinking that her daughter's being too carefree, she reminds her to get her life together. Her parents also confront her about her plans to run away. Emily tells her that if she spends her life dreaming of another life, she won't live the one she actually has. Still, DG insists that there's more to life than their little town, because she never felt at home there. After this, Hank shows Emily the drawing DG made, sharing that she's been constantly bothered by dreams of a lady with lavender eyes. Hearing this, Emily starts to worry. Hank goes to his daughter's room and attempts to cheer her up with his childhood memories in Milltown. However, DG isn't interested in hearing the same story. Because of this, Hank only reminds her that home is where the heart is, but DG argues that she can't stay in their town forever. Just then, Hank tells her that all of life's answers are found along the old road, but DG has also heard of this many times. Meanwhile, in the land called the Outer Zone, or OZ, a sorceress named Ascadelia rules over. She commands General Lana to find a special emerald before the double eclipse arrives. She stresses that if she doesn't have the emerald in 7 days, everything she worked for will be lost. Lana assures her that they'll find it, but as Ascadelia turns, she hears whispers and decides to see Lilo. Upon summoning him, Ascadelia orders Lilo to peer into the future and tell her if there will be something that'll hinder her plans. Although it physically pains him to use his powers, he complies for fear of getting tortured. Lilo reveals that Ascadelia will hold the emerald before the double eclipse, but a glimpse of light from the other world will stop her plans. Hearing this, Ascadelia sends Lonat and his longcoats into the other world to extinguish the said light. That evening, a storm rolls in over Kansas while DG dreams of the lady with lavender eyes again. In her dream, she also sees other peculiar things, like a fairy, dolls, and a bear. Unbeknownst to her, the storm brings Lonat and his soldiers. While a tornado approaches their house, the soldiers begin their attack on her home. DG arrives downstairs to see her father hurt, but Lonat grabs her. Still, she escapes his grasp, and Hank topples a shelf over him. The family runs upstairs as the soldiers shoot at them, though Hank gets shot in the ankle. While making their escape, DG asks who those men are, and Hank replies that they're longcoats. The family escapes out the window, and her parents tell DG to jump into the tornado. DG hesitates, so they reveal that the longcoats are after her because it's time. With the longcoats closing in, her parents push her into the tornado before following after her. By morning, DG wakes up alone in the woods where 2 suns are in the sky. Suddenly, a group of small men surrounds her, claiming to be resistance fighters from the Eastern Guild. Thinking that DG is a spy, they capture her and take her to their camp. Meanwhile, Lonat and his men return to Ascadelia, only to find her discussing something seemingly with herself. When she addresses them, they report that the light is a 20-year-old girl. However, she and her parents disappeared into the storm that they brought. This means the girl could be in their world, so Ascadelia punishes Lonat by consuming his life force. With her general gone, Ascadelia promotes Zero into the task and commands him to find DG. Elsewhere, DG gets thrown into a birdcage, though she argues that she's just looking for her parents. One of the men finds her parents' photo from her locket, recalling that they saw them being pursued by longcoats into Central City, although they also suspect that they were leading them instead. So to get DG to confess, they drop her locket and prepare the flare to torture her. As soon as the little men leave, DG notices a man tied to the ceiling of her cage. The man asks her to untie him, and in return, he'll take her to Central City to reunite with her parents. Convinced, DG frees the man and soon notices that his head has a zipper. The man explains that Ascadelia took his brain because he held valuable information. The man introduces himself as Glitch because he tends to glitch due to his missing brain. DG still thinks she's having a nightmare, but Glitch tells her she's in the OZ, which was a paradise before Ascadelia took over. Suddenly, Suddenly, Longcoats arrive, so DG takes a chance and jumps off of the cage and onto a bridge. Glitch follows suit, so they escape together while the little man watched the Longcoats destroy their camp. Among them is Zero, who finds DG's locket, confirming that she was there. While walking in the forest, DG and Glitch discover Longcoats harming a family. Despite Glitch's advice to get out, DG runs to them to fight the Longcoats, only for the scene to dissipate. Glitch points out a device that creates a holographic time loop, meaning that what they saw happened long ago. Realizing that it would only be playing if someone was watching, DG spots an iron suit with someone trapped inside. After opening it, a man named Kane Wyatt comes out. DG discovers that Kane was trapped in the iron suit, forced to watch his family get beaten and kidnapped by Longcoats. After cleaning himself up, Kane takes a pistol and his son's metal horse toy. Then, he reveals that he's heading to Central City, so DG and Glitch plead to go with him. Although he initially didn't want to take them, Kane eventually agrees because he worries that they might die at the hands of the Pape. DG wonders why he has a change of heart, but Kane tells her that heart has nothing to do with it. Not long after, the three set out on their journey. As they enter the woods, they spot a creature inside a trap that the Papes created. Kane wants to leave it to avoid getting captured as well, but DG insists. With no choice, Kane opens the trap, and out comes a man with lion-like features. Suddenly, the Papes get alerted that their prey has been released, so one of them bites Kane on the leg. The group runs for their lives, but finds themselves at the cliff's edge. Left with no choice, they all jump, hoping they'd survive the fall into the water. Meanwhile, Ascadelia commands Lilo to peer into the future again, so he tells her that the girl is heading east, looking for her parents. Suddenly, Ascadelia hears through the vision that the girl's name is DG, making her worry. She commands her men to dig up a coffin and gets enraged upon finding it empty. After this, she meets the previous queen of the OZ, Lavender, who's also the woman from DG's dreams. She lashes out after discovering that DG is alive, so to punish Lavender, she makes it rain before leaving Lavender's prison. Elsewhere, the rest of the group gets acquainted with a man with a lion's features, Rolf. Kane recognizes him as a viewer, a creature with psychic abilities who sees with their hearts. Ascadelia abducts Rolf's kind to suck the second sight out of their heads. Although Rolf seems kind, Kane doesn't trust him. Suddenly, Kane stumbles due to the Pape bite, so Rolf soothes his injury. As he does this, Rolf discovers that Kane used to be a policeman in Central City called a Tin Man. Kane confirms this, but adds that he was punished in the iron suit when Zero discovered that he was part of the resistance. Thus, he seeks revenge against him. Later on, the group reaches the brick road. Unbeknownst to them, Zora, Ascadelia's Mobat, is spying on them. Shortly after, the creature reports to its master, so Ascadelia tells Zero that DG is near the fields of the Papes. Meanwhile, the group stops to rest when DG notices a symbol carved in stone, which she has seen in her dreams. She repeats her father's words that all answers are found on the old road, and Kane points out that the old road is what people used to call the brick road. Thinking this, DG runs down the road and reaches Milltown, the hometown her father always talked about. Thus, she concludes that her parents came from the OZ. Seeing no sign of life, Kane recounts that the town was erased during Ascadelia's cleansing history. A sign also says that no humans are allowed, so they stop DG from walking in, only to find residents surrounding them. DG notices robotic parts, realizing that all the residents are cyborgs. A cyborg named Father View accuses them of being spies, so he sentences them to die. When DG defends that she doesn't even know Ascadelia, Father View recognizes her voice. Hank and Emily suddenly appear, reuniting with their daughter. However, they reveal that Father View recognizes DG's voice as it's similar to her real mother's. Later, they reveal that they're not her real parents, but are merely nurture units, which are cyborgs programmed to care and nurture. This freaks DG out, while they continue that their final task is to bring her back to the OZ, where she'll talk to Father View and fulfill her purpose. After this, DG meets up with Father View. He reveals that her mother entrusted her to him after her father died. DG's life was in danger, and her mother feared she might get caught in her attempt to save her. Just then, Father View reveals her mother's face, and it's Lavender. He continues that upon DG's return, Father View is tasked to give her something. He takes DG's hand and brands her with a rune to guide her. Father View tells her that it'll connect her to the light and her mother. Suddenly, Kane announces that the Longcoats are invading the town, so DG asks Father View where her mother is. However, he claims he doesn't know, but the mystic man from Central City might. Kane knows knows the Mystic Man because he was once assigned as his Tin Man, so he pulls her to go with him. After saying goodbye to the parents she'd known, DG and her friends flee Milltown and head to Central City. During the journey, DG wonders why her mother abandoned her, so her friends assure her that there's probably a good reason. Upon arrival at Central City, they discover it being heavily guarded, and DG is now on wanted posters. Suddenly, a funky-looking wagon appears, and Kane stops it. Anton DeMilo comes out and scolds them, but stops when he recognizes Kane. DeMilo threatens to call the Longcoats on him, but Kane blackmails him about his affair with Zero's wife. With no choice, DeMilo tells him where Zero is and helps him into Central City. Once they're inside, DeMilo gives DG front row tickets to the Mystic Man's show. However, Kane decides not to join them and leaves to kill Zero. Meanwhile, Emily and Hank are taken to Ascadelia's tower, where their CPUs are infected with a coercion virus, leading them to reveal that DG is off to meet the Mystic Man, whom Ascadelia calls the Wizard. In Central City, DG, Roth, and Glitch watch the Mystic Man's show. To DG's disappointment, however, the Mystic Man is consumed by Ascadelia's vapors, a magic mist that makes anyone feel dazed. Meanwhile, Kane heads to a brothel to find Zero, only to learn that he left to pursue DG. Because of this, Kane heads to the show and finds a swarm of Longcoats. Inside, DG notices Zero, so they immediately head to the Mystic Man's quarters. There, DG asks the Mystic Man her questions, but the Longcoats suddenly barge in, holding them at gunpoint. Kane arrives and knocks out the Longcoats. He tells them to leave, but DG refuses to since the Mystic Man isn't well. Still, she asks the Mystic Man where her mother is. Although he struggles to fight the vapors, he finally remembers when he sees a rune on DG's palm, saying that her mother had lavender eyes. This catches Kane's and Glitch's attention. With Zero closing in, the Mystic Man reveals that her journey in finding her mother begins at the Northern Island. Before they leave, he tells Kane to stick with DG because she's the key. As the group flees, the Mystic Man stalls Zero and the Longcoats. Later, the group takes DeMilo's wagon to the Northern Island. Meanwhile, Zero brings the Mystic Man to Ascadelia, who imprisons him. On the way to the Northern Island, DG and her friends get caught in a snowstorm, so they abandon the wagon and continue on foot. Back in Ascadelia's tower, Lilo gets forced to peer into the Mystic Man's mind. As he experiences the agonizing pain, he reveals that DG is heading to the Ice Mountain on the Northern Island. Ascadelia immediately realizes that DG is off to see their mother. Meanwhile, the group reaches the Ice Mountain, where DG uncovers a frozen castle with a gate that she opens with her rune. Inside, she finds a portrait of her mother and realizes that she was once queen of the OZ. Glitch also sees himself in the portrait, confirming that he was the queen's advisor. Recalling another of Hank's stories, DG discovers her old quarters. As Rolf touches the items, he sees the bad memories associated with them. Because of this, he pleads with DG to leave. However, Kane tells him to show them what he saw. Rolf complies and projects his vision through a mirror, showing a memory of the queen and a young DG. After the queen left, the young Ascadelia walked into DG's room while she slept, recounting a prophecy about the queen's two daughters, with one who'll be drawn to darkness and the other to light. This leads DG to realize that Ascadelia is her sister. The young Ascadelia approached the sleeping DG, noting how they would meet again during the double eclipse, where one would hold the emerald and take the throne. To ensure that she'll be the queen, Ascadelia consumed DG's life. After she left, however, their mother discovered what she did and revived DG using her own life force. She then told DG that the Emerald of the Eclipse would stop her sister and whispered to her where to find it. Just then, Ascadelia and the Longcoats arrive. Having seen the memory, Ascadelia discovers that DG knows where the emerald is, but DG insists that she doesn't remember. To coerce her, Ascadelia reveals a jar where an image of their mother is, revealing that she has the queen imprisoned. Suddenly, DG smashes the jar, releasing smoke that buys them time to escape. As Kane fights with Zero, the rest head for the gates, so Ascadelia releases her Mobats. It doesn't take long for the creatures to capture DG and her friends. Meanwhile, Kane is defeated. Zero then reveals that Kane's family is alive before shooting him, making him fall off the castle. After being captured, DG finds herself in a dream, where her mother tells her to let her light guide her through her memories. She then mentions that she used to rock DG as a little girl in their special place. When her mother tells her to remember, DG wakes up back in Kansas. Downstairs, she finds her parents preparing breakfast, making her think everything was a nightmare. She shares her dream, and when she mentions the emerald, Hank asks if she remembered the emerald secret that the queen whispered in her ear. This shocks DG because she didn't mention the whisper. Suddenly, the room shifts into Ascadelia's lair, revealing that her sister put her in a trance to reveal the whereabouts of the emerald. She also reprogrammed DG's foster parents, who are now loyal to her. DG insists that she doesn't remember what their mother whispered to her, and when Zero suggests prying the information out of her, Ascadelia refuses insists she's her sister. Taking her onto the balcony, Ascadelia recites the prophecy about the sisters, but insists that it doesn't have to be who they are. DG points out that she tried to kill her, so Ascadelia reasons that she was only a child who was foolish enough to believe that only one sister could rule. Now, she insists that they can make their own destiny if only they can get the emerald. Still, DG asserts that she doesn't remember where the emerald is, so Ascadelia drops her facade and orders Zero to bring her sister for a reading with Lilo. Meanwhile, Rolf gets thrown into jail with Lilo and a young viewer named Calm. However, Lilo doesn't think that Rolf is one of them anymore. Back in the northern island, Glitch finds Kane weak and buried in the snow. He takes him to Demilo's wagon, where he lets him recover. Not long after, Kane wakes up, and Glitch tells him that his son's toy stopped the bullet from piercing through his chest. Back in Ascadelia's tower, Lilo gets tortured into looking through DG's memory. After being electrocuted, he reveals that the Grey Gale is protecting the emerald, but he doesn't know where this is because her memories are protected by magic. Soon, Lilo passes out of exhaustion. After this, Ascadelia asks her mother about the Grey Gale, even reminding her that she's her daughter and should inherit the throne. Despite this, Lavender refuses to tell her anything. Later, Lilo gets thrown back to their cell. Rolf comforts him and apologizes for abandoning his kin. With his last breaths, Lilo forgives him, but asks him not to let Calm suffer. Suddenly, the alchemist takes Calm. Rolf tries to fend off the guards but gets overpowered. With Calm gone, Rolf turns to Lilo, only to find him dead. Meanwhile, DG gets thrown into a cell next to the Mystic Man. However, he warns that Ascadelia is listening to them. With that, DG and the Mystic Man fool Ascadelia into thinking that the Grey Gale is a myth. While they talk, they hear something from afar, so the Mystic Man tells DG that Ascadelia is repairing a machine to destroy the OZ. Realizing that her tactic is worthless, Ascadelia heads to a prisoner's cell and gives him a bag of rainbow discs. She then offers his freedom for his help. Later, the Mystic Man advises DG to head south, where she'll find the answers to her future and past. Elsewhere, Kane and Glitch head to Ascadelia's tower to rescue DG. They attack Longcoats and, to Kane's surprise, Glitch fights well and knocks down most of the enemies. In the tower, Ascadelia approaches the Mystic Man, who insists that DG is more powerful than her. Offended, she takes his life force. As she witnesses this, DG hears the wizard's voice, reminding her to unlock her memories. Later on, Longcoats take his corpse away and put another prisoner inside. Curious, DG tosses food scraps to lure a rat into turning the lever to open the cell. When she succeeds, a dog comes out of the cell, which then sets her free. Once she's outside, DG immediately searches for Rolf and sets him free. They try to escape, but two Longcoats approach the hallway, so Rolf grabs a tool and smacks one of them down. However, it turns out to be Glitch and Kane in disguise. DG immediately embraces Kane, which leaves him stunned. Following the dog, the group makes their escape with Longcoats on their tails. Still, the dog leads them out and into the forest. DG praises the dog for helping them, but it suddenly shifts into its human form, who turns out to be Ascadelia's prisoner. He claims to be a friend of DG's mother, promising to lead them to where the emerald is. Before they go on their journey, DG tells Kane that the Mystic Man died and that Ascadelia is building a machine that'll destroy the OZ. Before discussing this further, the shapeshifter urges them to keep going. However, Kane and DG don't trust him. Because of this, the shapeshifter shows DG a doll, which she remembers from her childhood. This sparks her memory, recalling that the shapeshifter is Tutor, her former magic teacher. She also recalls how Ascadelia used to help her with her magic. Although DG and Kane still have their doubts, they still take him with them. However, before they start their journey, Tutor purposely leaves behind a rainbow disc. Later, Zora picks up the disc and delivers it to Ascadelia, which shows her where they're heading. With this, she plans to let DG lead her straight to the emerald. Still, she sends Zero to follow the group. DG and her friends go through the fields of the Papes. As they carefully pass it, Rolf reveals that the Papes were once peaceful farmers, but Ascadelia's poor governance made them hungry and desperate for food. Now they've become mindless hunters. Suddenly, a horde of Papes appears and corners them. Desperate, Tutor urges DG to draw the magic out of her, and when she tries, the Papes mysteriously bow at her. Looking behind her, she discovers that her powers made a tree bear fruits. Thus, the Papes are thankful. They use the chance to leave, but Tutor drops another disc for Zora to pick up. Meanwhile, Ascadelia dreams about her childhood when DG cries to their mother because she let Ascadelia go. However, Ascadelia approaches them, though she's no longer the sweet girl she once was. Ascadelia wakes up, troubled by the memory. She looks in the mirror, and her face turns into an ugly witch. Elsewhere, DG sees the same dream, which leads her to believe that she was friends with her sister. In the dream, she also saw herself in a swing where her mother was rocking her near a lake. Recalling that her mother mentioned their special place, she describes the lake as magical, so Kane suggests going to the lake country of Finaqua. Meanwhile, Zora gives a new disc to Ascadelia, along with a branch of the fruit-bearing tree from the papes. This alerts her that DG is getting in touch with her magic. Elsewhere, DG picks up a rotten apple and recalls when she and Ascadelia picked apples together. Suddenly, they faced a bear, but their magic assisters kept them safe. Seeing this, DG wonders what caused Ascadelia to be cruel. Later, the group finds longcoats by the bridge, preventing them from passing. From afar, they see blue smoke, and Kane leads the group to the cabin owned by Ralph and Lorraine, a couple who are resistance fighters like him. During dinner, they talk about Ascadelia's machine, triggering Glitch's memory that he built the machine's prototype, which is called a Sunseeder. However, he can't remember what it does. Because of this, Rolf peers into Glitch's memory and projects it in a mirror. There, they see Glitch as the Queen's advisor, Ambrose. He pleaded with the Queen to use her light against the sorceress' darkness, but she had already given up her light to revive DG. He reassured her that he had destroyed the Sunseeder's blueprint before Ascadelia could take it. However, this only led the sorceress to remove his brain. After viewing his memory, DG embraces Glitch for sacrificing so much to stop her sister. Later on, the group prepares to resume their mission. However, before they leave, Kane notices horse figures that look like his sons. He asks the couple who made them, and they tell him that they came from a freedom fighter named Jeb and his mother Adora. Coincidentally, this is Kane's son and wife. Shortly after, Ralph leads the group to a zip line, which Kane's family also used to cross. Before they leave, he tells Kane that his family settled in a cottage that is tucked behind a giant white elm. Later on, they cross the gorge undetected. Hours later, the group reaches the white elm, and Kane immediately runs toward it, only to find an abandoned cottage and an empty iron suit. Behind it, he finds his wife's grave, so he mourns. Because of this, the group doesn't stay long and resume their journey. Later on, Rolf assures Kane that Jeb is alive, but Kane doesn't want his hopes up. Meanwhile, Ascadelia visits her mother after discovering that DG is heading to Finaqua. She asks why she sent her there, and her mother replies that DG must know what she's up against. Soon, Tudor leaves another disc for Zora, but Glitch finds it first. Zora tries to attack him, so Kane shoots the creature dead. At the same time, Ascadelia feels the pain of her pet's death. Back in the woods, Kane starts to suspect Tudor as he's urging the group to forget what just happened. However, the interrogation gets put on hold when DG unlocks another memory. The memory leads her into a maze, but she strays far from the group, and the others struggle to keep up. However, they eventually find her, but DG is disappointed to find that the place is no longer what it used to be. While looking around, DG hears a singing that she also heard as a child. The singing leads DG into the woods, just like what it did when she and Ascadelia were young. Her friends don't follow her as Tudor advises them to let her do the task alone. DG soon arrives in a cave with ancient symbols, which she also explored with her sister when they were young. Ascadelia didn't want to explore the cave, but DG insisted. Inside, DG accidentally opened the passage to a tomb, and they heard a girl crying. However, the girl turned into a witch who scared DG, causing her to release her sister's hand. This allowed the witch to possess Ascadelia. DG cries upon realizing that everything is her fault. Meanwhile, Ascadelia releases all her Mobats and joins the hunt herself. While Kane tries to comfort DG about her past, she recalls the Mystic Man's words about her light. This leads her to recall the heart-shaped lock that she hid with Ascadelia when they were kids. DG finds the heart-shaped lock and tosses it on the ground. Suddenly, Finaqua comes back to life, and out comes a lake and a pavilion. An image of her mother appears in the pavilion and reveals an important message. DG must head south to the realm of the unwanted, where she'll find a man named Ahamo, whom Tudor claims is her father. Meanwhile, Ascadelia finds Zora's lifeless body. Then, she tells her men to stay while she goes to Finaqua alone. Upon arriving, she discovers that DG restored Finaqua. Using her magic, she activates her mother's message, thus learning DG's next steps. Elsewhere, DG and their friends head south. However, Kane notices Tudor acting strange, confronting him and making him drop the discs. Caught red-handed, Tudor confesses, insisting that he only spied for Ascadelia to save his life. However, he insists that he's been keeping her back as well to let DG rediscover her magic. Kane is determined to get rid of him, but DG argues that he's the only one who knows Ahamo. To keep him from betraying them, Glitch suggests keeping him on a short leash. Thus, Tudor shifts into his dog form, Toto. Back in Finaqua, Ascadelia remembers her father's woodshed. When they were kids, she and DG placed 2 clay dolls for him to find. The memory makes Ascadelia cry, but when she checks, the dolls are no longer there. Because of this, she sends her Mobats to find Ahamo. Meanwhile, DG and her friends discover an underground entrance that leads to the realm of the unwanted. There, they find a bustling community filled with outlaws and deformed people. They meet Heir of Day, a fortune teller who suggests that the Seeker is the only person who knows of Ahamo's whereabouts. Later, however, Heir of Day meets up with a Seeker alone, who is also searching for Ahamo. They plot to find Ahamo instead before turning DG and her friends into the Longcoats. Elsewhere, Ascadelia receives news from her Mobats about Ahamo's new hiding spot. She heads there and finds the clay dolls. Back in the realm, the Seeker finally meets DG and her friends. Before anything, he asks to see DG's palm. But when she does show the rune to him, Heir of Day betrays the Seeker and commands her men to surrender them to the Longcoats. Amid the fight, DG gets abducted by an unknown individual. Later on, Kane, Glitch, and Roth get captured by Zero, and when they see Toto nearby, the dog just runs away. Heir of Day then approaches Zero for her reward, but is instead taken away by the Longcoats. Elsewhere, DG wakes up in the Seeker's hiding spot. She's wary of the man, but he reveals that he only uses the alias Seeker so people in the realm will find him when someone starts asking about Ahamo. He reveals that he's actually Ahamo, her father, who shows her the clay dolls she and her sister made. Despite this, DG hits him for abandoning her and her mother. Still, Ahamo hands her a compass, which he claims will lead her to the Grey Gale and the Emerald. He encourages her to continue the mission on her own because the eclipse is fast approaching. With that, they leave Ahamo's place, unaware that Ascadelia is observing them from the bushes. On the way back to Ascadelia's tower, a group of resistance fighters attack Zero and his men. To Kane's surprise, the group's leader is his son, Jeb. Meanwhile, DG can't figure out how to make the compass work, so Ahamo advises her to let the light flow freely. With this in mind, DG thinks of when Ascadelia taught her how to harness her powers. Suddenly, the compass stops and gives her a clear direction. With that, Ahamo reveals his hot air balloon, which they use to head to where the compass points. As they travel, DG learns that Ahamo had to keep the secrets of the Emerald, which is why he couldn't be with her mother. In the resistance camp, Jeb reveals that he was told that his father was dead, so he didn't search for him. Kane is proud to be reunited with his son, but Jeb doesn't seem to share the enthusiasm. Later, they ask Roth to peer into Zero's mind, but Ascadelia has shielded his memories. With no choice, they threaten to cut off Zero's fingers. Appalled by this, Kane tells his son to stop and let Zero talk. With this, he reveals that Ascadelia's machine will focus its power on the Emerald during the double eclipse and lock the two suns behind the moon, thus bringing eternal darkness. When they wonder how to stop it, Zero tells him to ask Glitch as he knows how to destroy the machine, but this information is in his missing brain. Hearing this, Zero reveals that his brain is in the brain room in Ascadelia's tower. After the interrogation, Jeb attempts to kill Zero, but Kane realizes that revenge won't accomplish anything. This disappoints Jeb, so he walks away. Soon, DG and Ahamo stop by the mountainside, where they find a hidden door in the woods. After opening it with her rune, the door leads them to a spiraling burial site for DG's ancestors. Ahamo leads her to the tomb of her greatest grandmother, Dorothy Gale, the first person ever to make it to the OZ from the other side. DG was named in her honor. Looking at the tomb, DG realizes that this is the Grey Gale. She finds a rune similar to hers, so she raises her palm to open the door. As DG enters, Ahamo tells her that she must do this alone. With this, DG enters and gets transported to a black and white representation of Kansas. There, she meets the young Dorothy, who hands her the Emerald of the Eclipse. Afterward, DG returns to Ahamo, and they leave. At the resistance camp, Kane dreams of Adora's death at Zero's hands. Waking up, he heads to Zero's tent, takes a sword, and sets him free. Meanwhile, DG and Ahamo hurry back to the hot air balloon, but Ascadelia arrives with her long coats. She quickly shrinks Ahamo and transports him into a prison. With him out of the way, Ascadelia takes the emerald from DG and transports her into a green tomb at the burial site. The next day at the resistance camp, Kane shows Jeb how he placed Zero in an iron suit. He promises that they'll be back for him if they stop Ascadelia. However, Jeb seems dissatisfied with this punishment, so Kane reminds him to have a heart or he'll have nothing. Meanwhile, Toto tracks DG's scent, which leads him to the hidden door. However, he can't figure out how to open it, so he leaves. At the resistance camp, Kane prepares to leave to find DG. Before he goes, Jeb embraces him, finally rekindling their relationship as father and son. At the same time, Ascadelia returns to her tower and wears a necklace where the emerald now resides. Afterward, she reunites Ahamo with her mother but breaks the reunion to reveal that she has the emerald. Because of this, Lavender disowns Ascadelia, and out of spite, she tells them that DG is dead. Eventually, Toto reaches the others and reverts back into his human form to tell them where DG is. Given that Kane is suspicious of him, Raph touches Tudor and confirms that he's telling the truth. Meanwhile, DG refuses to lose hope, so she focuses on her light and uses her powers to unscrew the locks of the coffin and escape. As soon as she gets outside, she encounters her friends and informs them that Ascadelia took the emerald. Seeing the eclipse happening soon, they hurry to stop her. They soon rejoin the resistance fighters near Ascadelia's tower and carefully plan how to infiltrate it. Before they do, DG shows her friends that she no longer has the rune. She assures them that it means that she doesn't need it anymore. She then tells Raph that he's the bravest person she knows, and Glitch is the smartest one. Lastly, she speaks with Kane, and he tells her that they may not be able to save Ascadelia, so she must prioritize herself. However, DG says family is important to her, and she's ready to face the consequences. After this, she holds her hand out for Kane to shake, but he instead embraces her. Meanwhile, Ascadelia sees that the double eclipse is about to begin, so she can finally finish what she waited 500 years for. Outside, the resistance fighters blow up the walls of Ascadelia's tower. With the Longcoats distracted by this, DG and her friends enter the tower undetected. Ascadelia, however, ignores the chaos and instead orders her alchemist to begin. The alchemist activates the machines, and she steps onto the podium to lock the two suns in place. DG and her friends finally make it inside, but DG decides to face Ascadelia alone while Kane and the others find Glitch's brain. Tudor also helps distract the guards and knock them out. This allows them to reach the brain room where they find Glitch's brain. With this, Raph connects Glitch to his memories, allowing him to remember how to shut down the Sunseeder. Under his instructions, Kane goes to the nearby keyboard and presses codes to deactivate the machine. The alchemists notice this, so they summon Khan to see through the events. Meanwhile, DG finally makes it to Ascadelia, who shows her how she's locking the sky to bring eternal darkness. Thus, a new world will awaken. Still, DG pleads for her sister to remember who she is, but the witch possessing Ascadelia claims that her sister is dead. With magic, she pushes DG off the balcony, but she manages to hold on. Elsewhere, Tudor sees an alchemist and two Longcoats heading to the brain room, so he tries to stop them but gets electrocuted. Ascadelia feels the machine is losing power as Kane only needs one code to shut it down fully. However, the alchemist arrives and electrocutes him and Raph. He then forces Calm to read Glitch's mind and recite how to fix the Sunseeder. Although it physically hurts him to do this, he does as he's told, allowing the alchemist to reactivate the machine. Soon enough, Ascadelia feels the machine's power again, allowing her to bring permanent darkness into the OZ. Ahamo and his wife can only embrace each other as they watch the hopeless situation. However, DG climbs back to the balcony and starts singing the nursery rhyme that their mother taught them. This catches Ascadelia's attention, allowing DG to apologize for getting her in trouble. She then reminds Ascadelia how she helped her concentrate her magic, and how their magic together protected them from the bear. DG then offers her hand to her sister, saying that she'll never let go this time. This awakens the real Ascadelia, but she hesitates out of fear of the witch. The witch also tries to scare DG off, but she remains firm, waiting for her sister. Finally, Ascadelia musters the courage to hold DG's hand, freeing her from the witch. However, the witch remains alive and demands the emerald while turning into a giant. When Ascadelia refuses to give it, the witch tries to attack the sisters, but their powerful bond is impenetrable. Meanwhile, Kane and the others overpower the Longcoats. Raph also gains the courage to protect Calm and even electrocutes the alchemist. Waking Glitch up, Kane asks him for the final code to shut down the Sunseeder. However, he struggles to remember, so Kane threatens to shoot his brain. Finally, Glitch remembers that it's 1208, the Queen's birthday. Right away, Kane presses the numbers, and the Sunseeder finally gets destroyed. Back in the balcony, the witch suddenly shrinks and melts. Seeing this, DG and Ascadelia realize they've won and embrace. They reunite with their parents, and DG finally meets their mother while Ascadelia is welcomed back. Kane, Raph, and Glitch also arrive, and DG thanks her friends. Together, they watch as the OZ basks in the light again, and DG is happy to be home.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.